area, so I kind of know where we're coming from. But I also want to share with you a quote that we shared with the panelists to get them to kind of reflect on their experiences and think a little bit so that we'll all kind of start in the same place. So Kelly kind of found this quote in the book Strangers in Paradise, Academics from the Working Class, published in 1995, and I think that book is on display in the back if you'd like to take a look at it. But the quote is talking about the themes that we see coming up in the experience of first-generation students. And the quote says, "First is the dual estrangement theme, whereby the upwardly mobile person lives in two very different worlds. The second theme explores internalized class conflict, where in many cases the different worlds are in serious conflict with each other. Finally, the imposter phenomenon theme describes the event of an upwardly mobile person surviving the new environment by becoming someone else all of the time." So that's kind of where we started our panelists thinking, and so I want you guys to start from that same place. I'm going to start out by asking the panelists to introduce themselves, their names, kind of their role here at EKU, what they do, and then I have some questions here that I'm going to start asking. At any point, however, if something a panelist says, at least after we let them all answer the first question, sparks a question for you or a thought or an experience that you would like to share, please feel free to kind of raise your hand, and Kelly will come around with a microphone. And we do ask that you wait on the microphone so that we can be respectful of all our attendees and ensure that everyone hears those questions. Okay? So we will kick it off with Derek.
My name is Derek Singleton. I actually am not employed or work here at EKU. I'm your alumni member, 1987, back before the tech boom. We were joking about that a little bit earlier. I am Vice President of Operations at Berea College, but once a colonel, always a colonel. Glad to be here.
My name is Diamond Richards. I'm a senior. I graduate in 15 days as of today. My major...
Let's give her a hand.
is criminal justice with a double minor in African American studies and police studies. And on campus, I serve as a lead guru in the Student Success Center, the liaison officer for the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, and a host of other things that I don't want to mention right now.
Their stuff all sounds so interesting. And then there's me. But my name is Ida Del Moro. I am a sophomore here at EKU. I work as a guru in the SSC, and I am currently trying to get into the nursing program.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Jill Parrott. I'm in the Department of English and Theater, there I coordinate first year writing, so if you had English 101 or 102 while you were here or are currently taking it, that's my program. And I'm also the QEP co-director right now. So hopefully you've seen signs up that say read with purpose, or you've heard about it in class, or your instructors are giving you more instruction than you've had before in critical reading, and that's part of what I do as well. I see people nodding their heads. That makes me very happy.
I'm Tammy Watson, and I'm the Assistant Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness and Research. I'm also an EKU alum, and I have a master's degree from EKU in Industrial Organizational Psychology. So I've been working here for a couple of years. I have a bachelor's degree from Ramsey College. I do strategic planning, research, put out a lot of data, numbers personally.
So since you're kind of still on the spot down there, I'm going to direct our first question to you to start off with. So tell us how you got here, a little bit about your journey and your story, any obstacles, barriers you faced along the way, or any kind of triumphs that you experienced.
Okay. Well, I'm from a small town in eastern Kentucky. If you've ever been to the Red River Gorge, you've probably been to Powell County. That's where I grew up. I am from a first generation, but I'm also from a family that was fairly poor. So we had very few resources, and no one really talked to me about going to college until I was a freshman in high school. I had a high school freshman English teacher who recommended that I attend a science enrichment program at UK. So I did that the summer of my freshman year. And during that program, they took us to several colleges, and it was the first time I've ever considered college for myself. And when I came back from that program, I immediately spoke to my high school counselor to make sure I was in a college prep curriculum so I could go to college. But it was the first time I ever thought about college. And I ended up going to Berea because of one of the trips that we went to in the program. I was to Berea College. I learned about it. Was one of the few places I thought I would fit in. And actually, even though I thought from then I'd go to college, when it came time to apply, I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how important the college application process was, and so I floundered. I feel very fortunate to have gotten into Berea, and looking back, I feel even more fortunate that happened for me. So I think just general lack of understanding about how higher education works was a barrier even to ending up in higher ed. So.
Dr. Garrett? Okay, I grew up in East Tennessee on a tiny little farm halfway up the side of the mountain that's been in my family. I will be fourth generation that the farm has been in our family, and I went to a huge county high school. You know, where most people stayed really close, I think, and that's maybe more my story. A lot of people that I went to high school with went to college, but they went to the community college or UT or somewhere very, very close to home, and then came back. So that's what a lot of my friends did, and it was never a question for me in my family if I was going to go to college. It just was in my household. I was going to college. My parents had not gone, and they had good jobs. We were fine, very middle class sort of family, but there was just never a question in my house from the time that I was tiny. It wasn't, are you going to college? It was, where are you going? So my parents were super supportive of my going, but absolutely did not understand what the process looked like, or what I needed to do to get there, or how to get financial aid, or any of that sort of logistical stuff that goes along with it. So I had their emotional support, but that was about as much as they could do for me. It was to just say, we're proud of you, great! You know, other things I really had to figure out for myself. But I'm still very thankful for their support. And you know, when the holidays are coming up, when I go home to my family for Christmas, I'm still going to hear from them, Jill, we love you, we're so proud of you. But they don't understand what I do. So that's my sort of disconnect. There's no challenge. There was never a question of, well, you're going off to college. Are you too good to be in La Follette, which is the town where I'm from? It was always how proud they are of me, but they have no idea how it works, or what I do, or what my day-to-day work looks like, or the research that I do, or what my classes were when I was in college, or what homework looks like, or anything of that nature.
Well, I was actually born in Mexico, so my journey starts in 2003 when my family decided to move here. I was 5 years old, and a month after I got here, excuse me, I was enrolled in school. So I have no idea how I survived that first year, because I was 5, I knew zero English, but here I am now, so thank God. And my parents decided to move here to give me a better education, more opportunities. And I had a brother with cerebral palsy. So in Mexico, we lacked the resources and stuff. So they decided to tell me to give both of us a better future. And he was always sort of my motivation, because I was doing, or am doing, something that he didn't have the chance to do. So when he was born, my parents got told by the doctors that he wasn't going to live longer than 12 years of age. And a little bit over 2 weeks ago, he passed away at the age of 22. So he succeeded all the expectations. And that's what I'm here to do as well, kind of doing the same thing. And like I said, since I had the opportunity to do what he didn't have the opportunity to do, I'm doing it for him. And so being a first-generation student never scared me. It wasn't something that I kind of wanted to hide, because it was something that made myself and my family proud as well.
So like if I cry after what somebody else said, so I was born in Washington D.C. I'm from Reston, Virginia. It's like right outside of the D.C. area. I am the second oldest of, I lied. No, I told you. I'm the second oldest of 4 on my mom's side and the 4th oldest of 7 on my dad's. My older brother on my dad's side graduated from UK a couple years ago, but I still consider myself first generation. I didn't meet my dad till I was 15, so really up until I was 15, I was the only one in my family to go to college. School, I've always, out of all my siblings, I've always loved school the most. I was always the one, like, when my mom said, time to get up at 6:30, I was up at 6:15. My sisters got up at 6:45. So I was always, like, the eager one. And for me, mostly, I guess, I always knew that I had to come to college because I wanted something better. I mean, I'm not trying to say that, like, I hated the childhood that I had or that my mom wasn't able to provide for me and my siblings or that my grandmother didn't take care of us. But I knew that I didn't want to live my life based off of government assistance, which is what I grew, that's how me and my family survived. My mom is disabled, so her Social Security income, and along with my grandmother working a full-time job, taking care of 4 grandchildren and a nephew, I mean, that was how we survived our years. But I think for me, my biggest trial being first gen is the fact that my parents don't understand, and especially since my mom and dad are separated. It's like I get like 2 different types of support from them. Like my dad, he's really like conversational with it, like always asking questions, and then I don't mind to answer his because he's so supportive and like foot forward with my education. Whereas my mom, she's kind of like in and out with the wind, you know, like ask questions when she's ready to, but they're questions that I've already answered, like in another conversation, like a week ago, you know? And that gets annoying as a student, like to always have to explain school to your parents. But I think that was my biggest tribulation, is my parents not going to school and not understanding. And then my mom, she thinks that because I'm in school, like my refund grows on a tree once a month, and it doesn't, it grows once a semester, barely. So she, you know, like to feel like my parents always feel like I'm financially stable, and I think that's my biggest issue being in college is not being financially, I'm fine with everything else, like I can manage on my own with everything else, but finances, being first generation is probably the hardest. But I will EKU. I'm coming back with my master's, so too far, but
my story is actually very similar to colleagues here at the end of the table. I'm sort of a mixture of the two. We grew up very poor. The family I was in, mom and dad, we never loved money. We lived paycheck to paycheck. Dad worked at a factory, and mom worked at the school nurse aide, and then they actually together moonlighted as janitors at a local church. We had a huge garden every year growing up, and that's not because local organic foods were cool. It's because that's how, part of how they put food on the table. We just didn't have a lot of money involved. And, but similar to Jill, there was no question that I would go to college. Mom and Dad were high school grads, never went to college, but there was no doubt that my sister and I would. It was just a known fact that you will go to college or you will face the wrath of Dad. And he made that clear from an early age. And I was a good student and wanted to go to college. And so that was just a sort of a foregone conclusion. The challenge, I guess, that we had, very similar, is Mom and Dad knew nothing about how to get ready, logistics, applying for financial aid, that sort of thing. We didn't know scholarships back then. I just assumed it's just like in basketball. If you know, they want you, they're going to come tell you, and they'll make an offer to you. We just didn't know. We had no clue. Back then, and I'm the gray beard of the panel. I graduated here in '87, and from Rockcastle County. I'm sorry, originally from Mount Vernon, Rockcastle County, and still live there actually. At the time, our guidance counselors, there was a sweet lady, loved her to death, but you know, she had burnt out 20 years previously, and she wasn't up to speed on that sort of thing, so we didn't get any help from that regard. And so it was sort of flying blind coming to college. It's sort of blessed, I guess, that it worked out as well as it did that I wound up here at EKU. But again, support of my parents was always there, and no question that I would go.
I'll pause for a moment to see if there are questions from the audience. So I'm hearing a lot from the panelists here, family is coming up a lot in those relationships. So I would like to kind of throw out, and any of you can answer this at any point, just don't talk over each other, right? Listen respectfully. For those of you still in college right now, so talk a little bit more about what's going on right now. And those of you this few years past, in what ways has your experience in college changed your relationship with your family, with friends from back home, if it has at all? So would anyone like to speak to that? A little more in depth.
One of the things was a little ironic with mom and dad, even though they were so encouraging for me to go to school the first time. Basically, I've got 3 degrees. The first time, they were all for it, and then after I got out and I began to work, I went back to get a chemical engineering degree. And they were like, well, why are you doing that? You've got a degree. You know, they couldn't understand why I would go back and do it again, and then when I went and got my MBA, it was a little odd. Why do you continue to do this? They were supportive, but it was a kind of an odd thing. But again, my parents were always very supportive.
I think that's actually not that odd because I had a sort of similar experience when I got to be a junior or a senior in college. I went to a tiny little school in Tennessee called Carson Newman Private School. And so I got to be a junior or senior. I was a double major in English and sociology, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do when I graduated, so I started thinking about graduate school. To be perfectly honest, just because I was good at going to school and I didn't know what else to do, so I figured I'd just keep on going, which I continue to do. I'm still here. And so I started thinking about grad school and ended up having a huge fight with my mother about it because she said, what are you going to do with the graduate degree? Why don't you just become a teacher and move back home? And that's what she really, really wanted me to do, was just be a high school English teacher. Not just being a high school English teacher is wonderful, but that's what she wanted, was for me to come back home and do that. Because in her mind, that's what you can do with an English degree, you can be a high school English teacher. And so that we had a huge fight about it. And she told me that they wouldn't support me if I went to graduate school. She didn't mean it. She was just angry and didn't understand why I would want to make that choice. Eventually, they were very supportive of my going to graduate school, but they very much did not understand why the bachelor's degree wasn't enough. Why would I want to do more of this? Why couldn't I just come home and be a teacher?
For those of us still in school, you're thinking about a master's program right now. Are you hearing, what kind of things are your parents saying about that right now?
Well, like here lately, my dad especially has been like very, very, I get that like I'm proud of you like maybe twice a day thing from him, and he's very supportive of it because he knows that I love learning, he knows that I love school, and he knows that, like I explain to them all the time, like Dad, this bachelor's degree ain't gonna cut it, like it's about the equivalent of a high school diploma now, like I know that I need to keep going, but like as far as the rest of my family, with my mom, our relationship has probably fluctuated the most since I've been in college because our relationship is so in and out. And like I said, I don't say it's like bash my mother, but I have no reason to like sugarcoat the fact that we don't have a perfect relationship. And as far as my siblings, that fluctuates too because, sometimes they're like, oh, Damian's away at school, like my sister's doing good things, and they're like all for it, and then when I come home and spend time with them, it's like oh, well, you think you're better than us, and you think you're smarter than us, and because you go to school, you have more money than us. So, I guess the perspective, it really depends, on the season. The summer, they're my friends because they see me all the time, and then, fall, winter, and spring, it's not the same. But, all in all, if I could sum up my relationship with my family now, with my youngest sibling who now goes here as a freshman, I feel like we've gotten closer because before I used to just have to tell her about what I was going through at school. And now that she's here and she is going through it herself, I feel like she's getting a better understanding of all the stuff that I was crying and complaining to her about before she got here. And being able to be here and be the example for her, it makes me proud because like I said, we have an older sister who didn't get to go to school. So knowing that I'm the one that she looks up to and not my older sister, I feel like a big sister. But I appreciate my family's support, even if it's not in all the areas that I expect it to be in. I'm appreciative that I get it somewhere because some people don't get it in, so I'm appreciative of it.
Okay, for me, I've always had a really good relationship with my parents, but my father actually wasn't one to like show his emotions very much. But now that I got to college, he tells me like every day, "I'm so proud of you, Mija." That's a Spanish word, sorry. He's always telling me, "I'm really proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing." So it really helps to have a supportive family, which I know not everyone that's a first generation student has, and that's why I feel really lucky. And also, the majority of my family didn't go to college, or the children don't go to college because we do represent a minority group. So when I go see the rest of my family, like in Chicago for Christmas or Thanksgiving, they're always very supportive when they tell me, "I want my daughter to be like you when she grows up," because I'm kind of setting an example for them. And it sounds like a good thing, but also it's a big, like, I don't know, like something big on my shoulders at the same time, because if, like, I get scared if I do something wrong and, like, I flunk a class, then I'm not going to be seen as an example for, like, my little cousin. So, I don't know, I really have a good relationship with my family. They're very supportive, which I think really helps to have a family that guides you, encourages you.
Anyone have anything else to add? Anyone from the audience like to add to that or ask a question?
Can I, Diamond, we're talking about.
Like a lot to her.
Yes.
I'm so loud. Sorry. I'm really loud. You all know.
That's why you need louder.
So, to piggyback on your question, Diamond, when you were talking about in the first line of questioning, when you were talking about your journey, you said something that struck me, which was, not that my mom and grandma didn't have a good life, but that just wasn't for me. Do you all feel like that was a thought? Dr. Watson, Dr. Parrott, if I go to college, is that somehow suggesting that my family doesn't have a life that's worthy or of me, or was that a thought that crossed your mind? Because you said something along those lines, I think, Diamond.
Wait. I'm processing everything you just said. So like, is this like a question for just me? Or for
No,
for
anybody. If
anyone.
that was a family dynamic, I guess a thing that you thought as you're deciding to go to college, like what is this saying to my family? Is this communicating something to my family like your life is not something that's right for me? Well, you said that. I didn't come up with this.
That makes me want to ask because I didn't even. Well, that makes me want to ask my family, if that's what they think of me because I'm in school.
But Diamond, you said that earlier.
Yes, because I did want to live a separate life compared to how I lived growing up. And like I said, it sucks when you worry about like your lights being cut off, or if you're gonna eat dinner the next day, or if your mom's gonna be able to buy you new clothes because your pants are too small and your shirts are too big. And that wasn't a common thing. Like it's not like this happened like month to month with my family, but it happened pretty often, And I've been told myself I will never ever put myself in a situation to allow my children to grow up the same way that I did. Not because not because I hated my child life or I was mistreated during my childhood, but financially, we were not as financially stable as I knew that we needed to be to make it. And it's just I want to make it, and I know that being in college, I'm going to set myself up to make it. That's why I'm here.
I think particularly for me, because my family all lived in the same place, my extended aunts and uncles, the same holler for many, many generations. It was a clear separation of what I wanted for my life that was different than what my family had chosen. And my mom, even though she never graduated from high school, she didn't even go to high school, was always very supportive emotionally of me, and she seemed to understand, but I did get snide comments from uncles or even my grandmother particularly, who didn't understand why I felt like I needed to go to college to change my future. Particularly, nobody understood why I decided to go to New York and get a PhD. That was very confusing for everybody, and particularly my maternal grandparents had no idea why I wanted to do that. And particularly, I couldn't complain to them about anything. So I couldn't say I have oral exams coming up and I'm so nervous that I'm going to mess it up, because they'd be like, well, then why are you doing it? I think it is, for me particularly, very much changed the way my life would be situated compared to theirs, and that was something that they were almost offended by.
I'll say that I'm keenly aware when I'm home that I should be careful what I say to my family. No one has ever said anything to my face, but there is nothing for me in my hometown where my whole family is. Every aunt, every uncle, every cousin that I have, everybody's there. I'm the only one who lives away and who has to come home. And they love it there, and I know that, and they're very happy. I would be miserable there. So it is very difficult to balance that knowing that for me personally, that would be hell for me to be home there all the time. I love going back to visit, but there's no life for me there. But they're very happy. So how do I respect that choice that they've made, knowing that my choice that I made was the right one for me, and that college was the avenue who got me to the life that got me to the life I have now. I'm keenly aware of it. I don't know that I always handle it well, but I'm aware.
Any other questions? Yes. Ashley Cole. I'm going to wait patiently.
I too am a first-generation college student, and to give a little background for my question, I've noticed recently, because I'm in my 30s, that my parents are leaning on me a little bit more. My family leans on me a little bit more, not financially, but they have a lot more questions. I do their taxes. Do you feel like your relationship has changed in your role? So now that you are a graduate, do you feel like they ask you more for assistance in that way because they trust you more? How has your degree changed your relationship with your parents and with your family?
Well, since I'll be getting mine in 15 days. I do feel like my family asks me a lot more questions. Like my mom was telling me the other day, she was like, I'm trying to go back to school and I don't know what to do with my financial aid, and I said, well, look, Mom, you need to call them because what you want me to tell you. But I will, they do ask a lot more questions, in regards to, school or money or, how something works, or can you explain this? And it starts to feel like I'm, the new family teacher, the unpaid family teacher, so it's not hard, but it's frustrating because they expect, I don't know. I just feel like when you're first gen, your family thinks that you just gain. I mean, granted, you learn a lot in college, but they literally think that every aspect of the world is now related to you in some way. And I'm like, no, I have a major, so I don't know stuff about music and English because my major is criminal justice. So if you have some things to ask me about law, I can tell you. Other than that, I'm going to have to direct you elsewhere. So it just gets troublesome when they think that you know everything in college, and that's very annoying.
My parents didn't do that so much. They would ask for advice, but not much more really than that. What do you think about this? Or hey, would you look at that? But really not. They were always pretty independent.
I'll say, I hate to ask another relationship question. I feel like that, and maybe that's a part of this, is that when we're first gen, we have those close bonds with our family or smaller communities. So I'm gonna go there again, kind of bouncing off of the things that you said and the question that Ashley had. I found often, as a first gen, having gone to college, the bachelor's and then the master's, that I would have conversations with my parents where maybe they do ask me a question or they mention something they've seen, and I find myself maybe having to correct that or give new information that could shift their perspective. And so sometimes I find myself in a dynamic with them that I feel like maybe I'm hurting them a little bit. I've had my father say to me, well, I guess I just don't know about those kind of things. Have you had that experience with family members or parents?
Yes. I absolutely. I get the same thing from my mom. Except I love my mother, by the way. But we started fighting when I was 12 and haven't quite stopped yet. But she almost exactly the same thing. You know, if we were in a situation where she said something that is just inaccurate, and I just can't let it stand, you know. I get well, I just don't know anything. Maybe you just think I'm stupid, sort of thing. No, that's not what I think. I'm sorry. So there is a difficult dynamic there for me. Yeah.
Same for me. I guess you just know everything. I answer fairly often. I try to walk a line where I don't say things as often as I think I should.
I let a lot of
things go.
I feel like, well, one thing that I've always told myself is you educate yourself so that you can educate others. And I feel like even when it comes to like your family, as much as it may hurt to like correct them, I feel like you still have to educate them, you know, because there's things that you know that they don't know that they should know or wish they knew. So I feel like even if I do take the time, which I do quite often and probably shouldn't do as often, but I feel like when I take the time to do that, I feel like I'm basically teaching y'all for free because I gotta go to school for 4 years, pay tuition and books, and then I take all the knowledge that I know and I come back and I share it with you guys because you're incorrect. You know, I feel like because I do that with my family, I feel like I benefit them. And if it hurts them, I don't mind to apologize and say that like I'm sorry for offending because I don't need to do that. You know, like over break, I was talking to my uncle, and on my dad's side and my mom's side, that's totally different side of the family. So we were in the car, and I was like, I like when I get to hang out with you all, because, you know, I don't have to be all educated and proper. You know, I can just chill and slouch and talk the way I like to speak. And he was like, so are you trying to call me uneducated? Because I graduated high school with a 3.2 GPA. And, you know, and I was like, I had to step back and think about myself because I didn't expect that comment to offend them. I expected the comment for him to be like, oh, I'm glad you get to spend time with us. But you didn't take it. So, I mean, it does make me consider more like what I say and how I say it, but I also feel like y'all signed up for this. You don't want me to be the only one coming back and correcting you, send the other child to school so that they can do it.
I feel like you're really leaning into that discomfort sometimes when you go home.
Yeah.
In the back.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and doing this panel too. This is excellent. I mean, it's touching. I guess I'm going to pivot from the family to the community. Do y'all ever feel like, as first-gen folks, that you come from a community that's largely made up of we're actually people who haven't earned a college degree, and that you have to kind of withhold your successes and code switch and speak a different lingo when you're home, and not even discuss your successes, because you all accomplished a tremendous amount. And I'm just curious to hear what the community response where you're from, maybe your church community, your family, you know, kind of the extended family folks you may have grew up with, you played ball with or played at recess with, how they responded to y'all earning a college degree or having a college degree.
generally my community, they're like, they talk about how proud they are, and they're excited, and I get asked to come back and talk to people. But I do find myself, if I go home for a few days, I come back with a stronger accent. I come back just with a little bit of a different, I don't know, things change about me and I notice it, so I do definitely code switch. And I feel myself doing it sometimes. I even catch myself and make myself stop. But in terms of, I don't hide my accomplishments, but most people don't understand what I do, but most people here don't understand what I do. So I had a conversation early on with a colleague, and I was complaining because my mom always asks me what I do, and I tell her, and then she forgets, or she doesn't really understand it. And I tell her again, which I tell her so many times. And that colleague said something to me that's been very helpful, is that she doesn't have to understand. She doesn't have to understand exactly what I do, but that I'm happy doing it. And that's helped ease that for me a lot, so I'm comfortable with it now. I think for a long time it bothered me, but even my friends who are my age, and I've explained what I do, and they still don't really get it, but they're not mad about that. They still are proud of that.
Anyone else want to answer that one?
I actually wound up back in the same town I grew up in. And not intentionally, I didn't really want to. It just worked out that way. And I traveled extensively, so I lived there. But with my job at the time, I was working with Sherwin-Williams, actually, and traveled very extensively, more than I wanted to, and more than my family probably wanted me to. So it worked out very well for us to be back home because my wife had a support network to help as she raised the kids basically for a number of years as I traveled so much. But I've always been fortunate. I don't feel like I ever had to code switch or anything. When I was in school, I always made really good grades. My friends, many of whom didn't go to college. Some did. Some came with me. Some, actually the reason I came to Eastern is my closest group of friends wanted to come here. I had no idea where to go. My buddies were going here, so that's why I came here. That's a true story. But a large section of my friends didn't graduate from college. A decent segment of my friends wound up in prison. But they always, I never had to code switch. I was just Derek. They were my friends. So I never experienced that with my close group of friends. I tried to be me and they were them.
I have a follow-up question to that. So do you feel like you have to code switch when you're at work? I mean, do you feel like you don't get to be yourself in academia, I guess?
Well, academia is way different from the corporate world I spent 24 years in, so that took a while for me to learn. It's just different. It just moves at a different speed. And so I had to adjust. I didn't code switch. And I guess because my parents raised me that way, I am who I am. And I'm not a blunt, knock you over type guy. I'm just who I am, and we go from there. But where I did do that in the corporate world sometimes, and I had to, because if I'm in Italy, it's a totally different culture. You have to be mindful, not just that you're Appalachian, but that you're American, and Americans are perceived different ways in different parts of the world, and you have to be very conscious of that. When I was at corporate headquarters, you have to be very conscious of that. So yeah, I would very much. I was me, but I was more aware of me, if that makes sense.
I will say, I will not fully answer that question, but as a first gen, I do want to say and kind of bounce off that and talk about that experience that I still, and as opposed to feeling like my family feels differently about me or my community feels differently about me, I do feel very uncomfortable in both communities often. I don't feel like I fit in my home community when I go home. After a day or two, I get uncomfortable sometimes, and then when I come back, I also get uncomfortable with that. And I experience, because my husband was a first gen when he went to college, but he didn't complete, partly because of that push in my hometown that when someone offered you a good job, you took it. So my husband took a good job in Winchester, Kentucky, and he never completed his degree. And so when I operate in the world of academia, I very often get, what does your husband do? Where did he go to college? What's his degree in? And so straddling that world is very uncomfortable for me in those ways. So when those worlds collide, either with me going there, me coming back here, or bringing my father to campus, because my sister went here too and often would come and visit her while I worked here and she went to school here. And that was always a very uncomfortable dynamic for me to navigate. So I'll say if anybody wants to respond to that, wonderful. If that initiates another question, wonderful. Or,
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm a first generation college student as well, and I'm only a freshman, so I haven't been to college that long, honestly. But I have caught myself, because my mom, she tried to attend a community college, but trying to raise me and my brother, that was hard, so she kind of, gave up, to be a mom to us. So I've caught myself kind of feeling guilty, being, it was no doubt I was going to college, that was for sure, you're going to college, find out what you want to do, but do y'all feel guilty? Have y'all ever felt guilty, when you're talking to your family and you're sharing something with them, oh, I've done this or I've done that, and they just look at you because they don't really understand? I don't know, I just know I feel guilty sometimes when I tell my mom or my little brother or my aunts or some cousins about the stuff that I'm offered here at EKU, and then they just look at me and then they're like, well, yeah, if that makes sense, if that's a question. I'm kind of nervous.
and I'll respond to that and say that one of the first times I think that I realized I was having that experience with my family, and I was experiencing things that they didn't get to experience and perhaps never will, is I went with the honors program here to New Orleans. And my mother has always wanted to go to New Orleans. But there was never a moment in her life that she could afford that financially, or afford that the life she lived taking care of children at home while my dad worked in a factory all week long, first shift, and then came home on a Friday night and slept a few hours so he could go back and work third shift so he could get overtime pay to make those ends meet a little bit more. So I have felt that guilt and still feel that guilt often now.
I can kind of feel that. I was actually feeling that a couple weeks ago. As I mentioned earlier, my brother passed away. And it was always the sense of, why did I have the opportunity to do things that he didn't? But I kind of changed that to a good perspective and use that as an encouragement. So yeah, sometimes you can kind of compare what you have or what is given to you to what probably your parents or your family has, and you can say, well, maybe it's not fair that I get to do this or I have this, but try to see it in a positive way, that I can go back and you can contribute to helping them later.
Back again.
Are there things that are non-academic things, like wisdom that you may have got from your folks or folks in your community that may not have come from an academic background, may have been from a work ethic background or kind of an understanding of the world type background that helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think work ethic is a big part of it. Both of my parents worked when I was growing up. My dad was a lineman for the local electric company, and he was on call all the time. So I was telling somebody the other day that when it started storming outside, lightning and thunder, and everybody else was getting in to get out of the storm, that's when my daddy went out to put everybody's electricity back on for them. And so, I just always growing up saw he was on call. He worked 60 hours a week. He was at work at 6:45 in the morning for my whole life. He just retired 3 years ago. And then in addition to that full-time job, we had a farm that had to be run, and the cows had to be fed and watered, and potatoes had to come up out of the ground, and beans had to be broken and pea shelled, and everybody chipped in to work. So when I got to college, my friends were hanging out until 1 o'clock in the morning, eating pizza and doing whatever it was that they needed to do, and I was studying because that's what I had to do to get it done, and it was just because that's what you do. You have to work, you want to get things done, everybody chips in, you have to do your part to make it happen, so that's what I did.
Mine's very, very similar. From my dad, I got a work ethic. What he just said resonated. I can remember so many times he would be working day shift, and he would come back and he'd go to work on third shift on the weekend to make extra money. And we all worked. I've probably broken 86 million beans in my life, I guess. We worked. I worked through college, delivering pizzas, bagging groceries. So the whole time I was in college, I was working almost, not full-time, but approaching full-time most weeks. And certainly got the same thing. And from my mom, when I mentioned a minute ago, I'm me, and it's kind of a nebulous, makes no sense statement the more I thought about it. What I mean by that is what I got from my mom is treat people the way you want to be treated, and if you do that, all will go well. And that's been my experience. And so when I say I'm just me, that's what I try to always do. And I got that from Mom. That's probably the best thing I ever got, I guess, from anybody.
Should've worn tennis shoes.
So you won't be surprised to hear this question from me, but what attracted you or what made you choose the institutions that you chose? And what kept you there? Because we know first generation students, you have to work to retain. So what brought you there? What kept you?
So initially, and I guess it's kind of tied into the community question that was asked earlier. Initially, I applied to a historically black institution for my undergraduate degree, and I got accepted into Kentucky State University. And I remember going to church that Sunday, and I went up to the altar, and I was just so excited. And I told them, I was like, I got accepted in K-State, and it was like, at that moment, like their face looked like y'all right now, and I was like, oh, so this must not be a good thing. Like, going to K-State must not be a good thing. So I stepped back, and I looked, and I thought about the pros and cons of attending a PWI compared to attending an HBCU. And once I did my little bit of research, I chose to come to EKU. When I got accepted here, I took no tour of campus. I didn't do orientation. I didn't do kernel camp. I just got accepted and I showed up when we were supposed to. And I, by no means at all, regret, it's hard for me to put my arm together, regret choosing to come to Eastern. And my main reason for choosing EKU over K-State, even though I got accepted into both, is because I knew that as a minority female, I had to learn and adjust to working with people that don't look like me. And I feel like when you attend it, and I by no means want to knock anybody who attends or considers attending an HBCU, but I know and understand that when I grow up and get a big girl job, I'm just not going to be working with a bunch of black people, you know? And I know and understand that my boss might be white or my boss might be Hispanic, and at the end of the day, I'm going to have to know how to work with them the same way I would work with anybody else. And I felt like attending an HBCU, I would not get that diversity that I knew I would need to function in a real world, because at the end of the day, the world's just not full of all. You know, it's just not full of all black people, and I can't put myself in a situation to where that's how I set myself up to function. Because then when I go out into the real world and I have to face people who don't look like me, I need to learn and know how to face them. You know, I can't approach them the same way I would approach other people. So I did it more so to set myself up for diversity. And I think that's why I was appreciative when I found out that EKU was so big on diversity and inclusion. And although I may feel that we need to show it in more ways than others, I feel like diversity is important, and I knew that attending PWI, I would get the diversity that I needed. And I'm not saying that like being black and attending a PWI is easy, or that like I've always enjoyed every day and week that I've spent here, but I know that I'm not going to get spoon-fed when I graduate and I want to get a job. And I also know that I have to work with different people. So I attended EKU so that I would be prepared to work with different people.
My story is kind of similar to hers. Growing up, having friends or family friends, they all talked about going to BCTC in Lexington. It was just kind of the thing that us Hispanics would go to. Like, not a lot of us or friends went to actual, well, not a technical school. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. I actually was in a program called ONC, which was going to BCTC my last year of high school, and it was great. I got advanced. I got 15 credit hours when I got here. So there's nothing wrong with it, but for me, going to BCTC after high school was never an option, just because minorities and diversity is like really not represented as much as it should be, in my opinion. So I always wanted to go to either UK or UKU to represent, to actually say, well, not all of us go to BCTC or a technical school, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just want our voices to be heard more, and that is the reason why I chose EKU.
I wish I had a better reason for attending, but my guidance counselor, when we were talking about college, I said, well, what about UK? She goes, UK is too big for you. I said, well, what about Berea? And she said, Berea's
Breeze what?
Berea's a hippie school. Oh, this is what she told me. And I said, well, what about Eastern? She goes, Eastern would be good for you. And I'm like, okay, you want Eastern? Partly because my friends, I had a group of 3 friends that were very close and still are, and they were coming to Eastern, so that was it for me. I mean, and it just shows how naive we were at the time. We just had no clue about it. And as far as retention, 2 of the 4 of us dropped out after the first semester, so 4 came, 2 were there in January of '84 in our first year. But I retained because the dorm I lived in, I connected in with a lot of guys on that floor and enjoyed it. The classes went well, and just once I got here, I was supposed to be here. I loved it. 4 days in, 5 days in, I should say. The 4th day, I was ready to go home. I was 26 miles from home, but I was so homesick I was about to die. 5th day, I made it through, and then I was fine. But the connections in the door, for me, is really what made it for me.
As people think about whether they want to answer, I think we had a question in the back.
I don't know that it's a question yet, but as I listened, I was thinking of this notion, going back to the work, and everybody expressed kind of working class roots, things like that, and I remember it was never a question for me whether or not I was going to college either. As long as I can remember, my father, who worked a lot of hard labor, construction, mines, things of that nature, he always told me, you're going to college. You're smart, you're good at school, so you're not going to have to break your back like your old man. You need to go to college so you can get one of those good jobs. And so I think what that did for me is I underestimated academic labor as work. And I came here thinking that this was a gravy train, that this was easy street, and particularly now I teach in the College of Justice and Safety, and I found myself taking on a ridiculous amount of responsibilities and projects and not saying no to anything, because for the first several years I didn't really feel as though I was working. I had that mindset that, well, it's better than swinging a hammer. This is a lot easier than digging ditches, and so I found myself then putting in these 80-hour weeks, just ridiculous amounts of time because of this residual guilt that I'm not actually working for a living. I've got it made. I just wonder if that's anything that anybody else is doing.
I feel like I work every day. I'm tired. I mean, I looked at school as working, and I looked at my refund check as my paycheck, and and I always knew that I needed to manage my refund check, and it needed to last me until I got the next refund check. So, I mean, school definitely feels like a full-time job. I literally leave my house when the sun rises and come home and it's dark outside. So, I mean, I literally spend like every moment of the day on campus, and I mean, it's very draining, physically and mentally. Yeah. It's very draining, but I guess because I looked at school as something that I had to do and not something that I really had a choice of doing, it didn't bother me. Like, I'm tired right now, but it doesn't bother me that I'm tired because I know that I'm doing something. And I know that, like, me being here, even, like, sitting on the panel or, like, talking to you all listening to me, like, I'm participating in something so I don't feel bad about having to do something always or working always. Even though I think I should be thinking.
I'll say I can agree with that sentiment. I think even now, even though I work a lot of hours, I have what I call my first shift, my second shift, and my third shift. So my first shift is before my daughter wakes up, and then I come to work, and then I work again after she goes to bed. I work a lot of hours, but sometimes it's not physical. It's in front of the computer, and I'm writing reports, and I'm doing that kind of stuff. And to my family, even, they think I don't. She just works at a university. It's like, yeah, it's highfalutin. It's not that hard. But I can certainly sympathize with that. And in terms of underestimating how draining this kind of work is, and even going to school is, I remember coming home when I was in my early days at Berea, and I've never not had a job since I was like 10. So even when I was at Berea and I wasn't supposed to be working, I was still working on weekends. And I would come home and I would work, and then I would sleep. And I would sleep for like 15 hours. And my mom would wake me up with homemade food, and that was great. But the way that this academic work drained me was a surprise for me. And I think on top of the additional jobs, it was a hard 4 hours.
I was kind of raised with the mentality of, you're going to college, that's your work. I remember when I turned 16, I told my parents that I wanted to get my first job, and they were like, no, absolutely not. You have to focus on getting a good GPA in high school so you can get good scholarships in college. So that's what I did, and kind of went in thinking, it's going to be kind of like high school, because I honestly think that high school did not prepare you for college at all. And so I came in, I was like, okay, I got this. It's my job. And I would get a phone call from my father, and he's like, are you staying up to 5 in the morning studying? And I was like, no, it's not that bad. Like, it was that bad. Yeah, like this first half of the semester, I had a pre-nursing lab, and I did not lie when I tell you that I had a mental breakdown every Wednesday. Like, it was bad, like class destroyed me. But I feel like sometimes we do come in with a mentality that's not going to be that bad. It's the only thing that I'm doing, well, what I was doing, because now I'm a guru. Shout out to Laura Vance. And yeah, it definitely is very draining. Maybe not physically, but emotionally it is. So we do have to put a lot of mentality and mindset into focus as well.
I'll say that my experience in some ways was similar to Edith's, in that my father and my mother didn't want me to have a job because they said you need to focus on your studies and it's going to be hard and it's going to be tough. And then so, kind of opposite from you, I didn't speak up in class, and I didn't take on extra responsibilities, and I didn't join clubs or that sort of thing, because I was always waiting for the shoe to drop, and I was always waiting for someone to find out that I shouldn't be here. Because I'd been told it would be hard. I was told I was smart, and there's no question that I was going to college. It's what you have to do, because you need, one, I needed to be a teacher, to be a nurse, because I needed to go back to Clay County. But two, it's going to be difficult, and you've got to commit yourself to it. You've got to work hard. So I kind of translated that into high school. I've just been skating through high school. I did well in high school because high school's not hard and it's not preparing you, right? that was easy. And so when I came here, I didn't do anything because I was afraid that any extra would reveal those cracks.
And hearing them, I wish I didn't have to work while
I ended up having to work because the credit card did it, which is another thing you don't understand as a first generation student sometimes. But
Because I mean, like over the summer, I had 2 jobs. No, I had 3 jobs, and I was still like participating in stuff on campus, and that itself is like tiring. And just throughout the semester, taking 15 credit hours and working, and I mean, there have been some semester where I worked 2 to 3 jobs and was still a student. Like that on its own is draining. But I guess I try not to think about it because, like, where I don't get financial support from my family, I look at if I don't work, I don't survive. So I feel like I'm obligated to myself, and I have to make that commitment to myself to work so that I can take care of myself. And I mean, there are semesters where I wish that I could have made it. I've worked since I've had a job consistently ever since I was 16, and I always knew that if I didn't work and make the money for I knew not to ask my mom for money because she just didn't have it. And it got to the point where I always told myself, there's no point in asking your mom because you know she doesn't have it. So to spare myself the disappointment of continuously asking my parents or my family for money and knowing that they can't give it to me, I said, well, I'll just make it myself. Because then I knew, like, I know, I guess with me growing up, like, my mom, if we worked, we had to give our money to my mom to help her pay the bills and put food on the table. So I knew that if this was a job that I got for myself, and now that I'm in college and I live on my own, I know my mom can't come and take this money from me because it's my money that I worked for, that I made. I'm not living under your roof. I don't have to help you put food on the table anymore. I don't have to help you pay the rent. And even now, like when I talked to my mom, we were on the phone the other day, and I told her I cleaned my apartment, and she was like, "Why are you going to come clean mine?" And I said, "No, I'm not cleaning a home that I don't live in, you know? And I'm not going to give you money to put food on the table that I'm not eating off of." So I feel like me working and going to school is just my way of survival.
I have one quick question from earlier, and this is, like one of the first things you said, Diamond. You said that when your sister started going here, she understood all the things that were frustrating you about being in college. So what are some of those things that frustrated you when you got here, or some challenges you faced when you first came?
I think the first thing that I experienced that was hardest was financial aid, because I've been verified for Kia for 3 out of the 4 years that I've been here. And that itself is dragging. And it always annoyed me because I was like, well, why do I have to get verified again? Like, my mom's still disabled, we're still broke, we still get food stamps. Like, nothing has changed between freshman year and now to where I still need assistance. But I think it was that, and then like having to bear the workload and then still try to be as active in my family as they expected me to be. That was really challenging. And then for my little sister, like, she always wondered why I didn't always answer her phone calls, or I didn't always text her back, and we couldn't always hang out. And I would tell her, like, I have stuff to do. Like, you're just going to have to wait because I have stuff to do. And sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I've pushed her away, but I've also given her the opportunity to understand that when you come to college and you grow up, at least for us, like, there's just stuff you have to do. And you don't always have time to be social and go out and hang out. And I try to get her to appreciate the fact that, like, even now that we go here, we literally only see or talk to each other twice a week. And that doesn't bother me because I'm getting what I need to do done. But it bothers her because she's like, you're my sister and I never see you and I never talk to you. But I also try to get her to understand that while you're here, there's business comes first. And know that I'm thinking of you always and I want to know that you're doing okay, but business comes first.
There were some sort of class and rural, urban issues with me when I went to school. Just coming from a farm in a teeny tiny little town, and we wore jeans and t-shirts where I went to high school, and I got to college, and it was a private school, and I was there on scholarship because I worked very hard in high school, and I was going to college, so I had to work really hard so that I could get a scholarship, and I got my scholarship, and I went to the school. But a lot of the people there, for example, my best friend ended up being roommates for 2 years. I'm actually going to see her next weekend. I'm excited to see her. It's been a little while. Her dad was an engineer in Atlanta, and so she grew up in the metro Atlanta area. And I found out really quickly that she shopped at Banana Republic and I shopped at Goodies, right? And then my clothes weren't good enough. And it was a thing, sort of figuring out how to transition and how to navigate those social things that I just hadn't really had to deal with before. And coming from a community where most people didn't go to college.
Piggybacking on that a little bit, for people who are freshmen, this is their first semester, what advice do you have for them to keep them here so that they graduate, they finish this degree?
Make good friends. That's what saved me, honestly. I mean, I was just talking about that friend, and maybe that story doesn't make her sound very good, but she's great, and we're still friends. And I made friends. That's what kept me in school, is that I had these people and these relationships that I loved. I don't think relationships are the most important thing in college. To me, relationships with your friends, with staff, with faculty members, and that kept me in school, or at least I would have gone to school, but that kept me where I was. That retained me at the school where I was, because I loved my faculty members, and they showed me they cared about me, and they were amazing. And I went out of my way to go talk to them and learn about them and who their families were and what they were interested in, and it made a huge difference for me.
I feel like, well, I want to talk about like first generation freshmen. I feel like we all have a motivation or a big reason, or maybe someone that we're doing this for, maybe not family member, but for ourselves. Just remember that during the hard times. Like when you feel like you want to give up, or if an assignment is too hard or anything, just remember why you are here and who you are doing it for.
I would agree with trying to make the relationships again. When I was in the dorm, the friendships I made kept me in two of my three good buddies left. But the others take advantage of all the services that are available now. There's so many things now that are available to students, particularly first-year students, that weren't there when I was in school. That are counseling, advising, and all these other special services that are there. I would certainly give you the advice to ask questions and to seek out the services that the university offers.
I would say one of the most important things for me was figuring out what I was actually good at and keep on doing that. I think you find out pretty quickly what you're not good at, and it's easy to say, well, I'm not good at anything, and kind of give up. I mean, my first two college roommates left. That says about me. They both left. I think they had strong relationships, but they never found their connection there. Their real, what they were passionate about, and what they were very good at. And I think I was lucky and I found that early, but I also realized it and I kept doing it. So when you find something you're not good at, don't be afraid to give that up and look for something that you are good at. Don't feel stuck.
Any other words of wisdom?
Good question.
I was just wondering, you said having good friends really supported you guys. Did you ever at any point feel lesser or oppressed by second and third generation college students because you had to work for your privileges as opposed to just being handed them?
I wouldn't say that I ever felt oppressed by it. I was very aware of it, that I would go to work bagging groceries until midnight and deliver pizzas until 2 in the morning, and I wasn't a partier, so you see kids that were partying, and I wasn't impressed, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I resented it sometimes. So, for what that's worth, I guess.
It wasn't the case for me as an undergrad, because I went to Korea. But when I got to EKU for graduate school, I was the only person in my master's program who also worked full-time. And I had a faculty member ask me one time why I wasn't there more with my peers. So my peers stayed in the CAMEC building and studied all the time. And faculty member asked me once why aren't you here And I said, because I work a full-time job and a part-time job. And she asked me why. And I said, well, I support myself, and I also pay my brother's college tuition. And so not only was I supporting myself, but supporting my family. And she had no comprehension of why in the world I would do such a thing. And so I think I didn't feel oppressed by it, but I certainly felt like there were people here who had no idea what my life was like, or why I was doing the things that I was doing. And then I had to figure out that I didn't care that they didn't understand it. I would just do what I had to do anyway.
Alright, so I earned my ride to EKU through football, and my siblings they did community college, but like on and off, kind of like community college. What would you tell a person that came on a different ride like that and believe that maybe the schooling genes not just in the family, like you're the first one really going to a big school, so you don't think that it's normal for your family members go, so you don't think you may have it. What do you tell a person?
I'll play professor for a minute on that one. I would say that the research shows that a lot of that has to do with our mindset and whether or not you think that you can grow and do something different than what you're used to doing. And our perspectives on how we, the work we can put in and what we think we can do, and if we think we can change, is actually really powerful, and if we can actually change and do better.
I will second that. I think a lot of people that I've been around think that you're either smart or you're not smart. And I've always been people always thought that I was smart, but I struggle too, as do most people, but I've always felt like I could figure it out if I tried. A lot of that comes from my family and they're very persistent people. But I think understanding that no matter if it feels normal or not, you can do it if that's what you decide that you want to do. And I don't think anything feels normal to a first generation student in a college environment. I think feeling like it's not normal is okay, because it's not normal. It never felt normal to me. Even though I was good at it, it never felt like the place I was supposed to be.
And I'm just gonna add one quick thing, and you can get coaching for academics too. So you can grow and you can learn, and Laura Vance at the Student Success Center does amazing things. So yeah, if you're feeling not smart enough to do something, don't assume that. Go get help. Yeah.
So, I think you guys are awesome, and this is a great panel, and I think we all agree that we've learned a tremendous amount, and it's been a pleasure listening. There's one voice that's not represented, though, on the panel, and I think that I can speak to that voice, and I will get to your point in a minute, and that is the voice of a person who wanted to go to college whose parents did not support them, actually discouraged them, and worked to put barriers up. They loved me so much, and so on and so forth. Of course they did, but it was just too foreign, and they didn't want to lose their beloved, right? So they were just very protective. So that's one voice that I think we need to remember is a part of the first-gen experience, no matter where you are. But because of that, because I was hearing from my parents that this was not for me, we weren't the kind of people who went to college, that's where I had a hard time. Because I always thought, it's not for people like me. We're not, you're poor, there's not deep levels of education in your family, you don't deserve it. We're not deserving of it. And my family still, you can look at me and know I'm a middle-aged lady. I got a lot of cousins. I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and I'm still the only one. If there's no broken cycle. And when I talk to my cousins and my aunts and my uncles, they still say things like that. Well, it's not for us. It doesn't matter that there's an example who has advanced degrees. It doesn't matter. We still don't belong. We're not a family that belongs or that deserve it.
Kind of
piggybacking off of what you said, how do you treat students or tell students who feel like they don't deserve to be here, or they kind of feel like an imposter kind of thing? What do you say to those students?
I would say that you are here for a reason, and to take advantage of that. You know, and maybe that's not the right, maybe it's not what you want to hear, maybe it's too simplistic, but you've been given an opportunity, and so don't be afraid to ask for help, and hustle, work, but don't be afraid to ask for help along the way. You've been blessed with an opportunity, and don't waste it. That's what I would say.
I have a sign above my head in my office that if a student is sitting in front of me at my desk, they can see it right behind me that says, "Good things happen to those who hustle."
It's true, you still have to believe it, and that confidence is very, very hard to get. To get that confidence that you need is so hard, no matter how many supports are there. And I think what I would say is, I think you hustle, you hustle, and you keep in mind that thing that motivates you, your brother, or, you know, what you want to do, Diamond. Those things are always there, like, that's my goal, but you have to overcome that issue with confidence and believe that you belong and that it is for you. You know, I think that's a big psychological barrier for some who don't have the support network of loving parents at home saying, you can do this. I mean, not that my parents aren't loving.
I wanted to piggyback off what Bettina said. When I worked with bridge students, a lot of them would tell me that they had a guidance counselor or an assistant principal or somebody in high school that told them they weren't college material. So, you know, it's not just you may be getting the encouragement from your family, but as a first-generation college student, the meaningful encouragement would come from the educators that know you intellectually. And so often that becomes a discouragement. And so when they come to college, they look for that first validation of, I'm not college material, and then they leave. And I remember I talked to a student many years ago, and this came up to mind today, and I'll tell you why, but I said to her, because she's having a really bad week, and I said, so people told you you're not college material, is what I'm getting from you. She said, how did you know that? And I said, because you're not alone. And so today on Facebook, she posted her in her cap and gown, because she graduates in December, right with Diamond, same college actually. So I was really excited to see that. But, I mean, so I'm wondering, what kind of validation did you get when you got here that you can do this? Because we do get really hung up on the, oh, maybe this isn't for me.
Sorry, what did you say? You repeat your
What
question?
kind of validation did you get when you came?
That you are college material.
How did I
Belong.
know that I should stay here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very strong in my faith, so I always felt like if God felt like I was not going to benefit from being here, He would not have placed me here. And I tried to think of like something small that happens every day as like a lesson or like a reason for staying. So like some days it's something that my friends did, or some days something that I learned, or some day it's my professors. But I think knowing that I wanted to go to school not only for myself, but to prove those wrong who doubted me, I think that, if anything, pushed me more. Especially when I look back and see that those that doubted me are not doing anything even close to what I'm doing, it made me feel like I had to continue, because you're telling me that I can't do something that you don't even know what it's like. You don't know the steps that I took to get here. You don't know how long it took me to get here. So I think encouraging myself to continue help validate, if anything, like why I should stay. And I think my biggest thing, I come to college, my main motivation is my nephew, who's literally my entire world. But besides knowing or feeling like he's the reason why I'm here, I have to push him aside and find reasons for myself as to why I want to stay. Because if I stay because I want to make my nephew happy, or support him when he gets older, that's supporting him, you know, like that doesn't benefit me. So I think it's okay to be selfish and put other people aside and think of why you want to do stuff for yourself, and that will encourage you more internally, because sometimes I feel like when it comes to family members or friends, that's like external motivation, people on the outside. But when you're in your dorm room at 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself, and you have to sit there and have a talk with yourself, you know, and give that come to Jesus moment, and you're asking yourself why you're here. Like, having a personal relationship with yourself and being able to differentiate what you are not comfortable with and the limits that you should push beyond, I think that will help too.
And I think the validation comes when you find what it is you're good at. And I think that everybody can find something. And I think, I was really good at reading books. I read lots and lots of books. Every book I could get my hands on in the library growing up. And then when I got to college, I got to read a lot more books. I was really good at that, and I found that I could also write really well. It was a surprise to me. Nobody encouraged me to do that, but once I figured out I could do that, I figured out I could do everything else, or other things. I went into Berea College, I had to take developmental math, and I do math now. I mean, that's what I do every day. But I had to take developmental math, and I had to take it because I had to take developmental math. But later on I took calculus 1 as an elective, or cal 2 as an elective, because I wanted to do it, but I got confidence finding what I was good at, and then I thought, well, I might as well try calculus, and that was okay too. But I think find something that you have a success. It doesn't even have to be passing a class. It can be learning something new that you didn't think you could learn, but embrace whatever successes you can find.
I would say make sure that you validate other people. Your words have meaning, and one of the things I can remember as a freshman, there was a professor here, and I had to take a logic class, and didn't want to take it. I didn't know that I would take logic. It didn't. I only got logic to spot and talk about it on Star Trek. And I wrote a paper, and I had always made A's, and so he gives me a C+ on the paper, and I'm just torn up. It just killed me. And I went and talked to him, and he's kind of a little intimidating kind of dude anyway. Later came to know he was a really nice guy, really respectful and remembering. I said, well, what did I do wrong to get a C+? He said, no, it's a great paper. And I was like, well, what's the deal? Why did I get a C+? He said, because you can do better than this. And he said, you can look at it this way. People, you can consider that people do things to you or for you. I gave you that for you, not to you. And I've always remembered that. So, long story short, validate each other. If you're a first gen and see somebody else having issues or trouble, speak to them. Speak goodness into them. Speak life into them.
Dr. Watson, a second ago, you said that you kind of began to feel validation when you realized and you found something that you were good at. So could you all speak a little bit about how you came to find or decide on your field of study, and for those of you who graduated, how that has kind of guided your career and how your career has evolved over time?
I can start in that I changed my major. I was a biology major until my junior year, and changed my major to psychology, and I did it because I took a statistics class, not one that I had to have. But I took a statistics class, and I was really good at it. And the faculty member asked me to tutor other students, and I liked that too. And then I decided that that's what I wanted to do, and so I changed my major, and I still do statistics. It's not what I do here. Nobody ever wakes up and says, I want to do institutional research when I grow up. I had a graduate assistantship in my master's program here. A faculty member here said, hey, she's really good at statistics, let's put her in institutional research as a GA, and that worked out really well. I got another assistantship as a PhD student in doing statistics again, and then just snowballed from there, and that's what I do here too. Still something that I feel like I'm good at and that I love to do.
My story is completely uninteresting. I like to read books, and and I like to write, and was always told by my teachers that I was good at that. So you get that sort of positive reinforcement, and that's what you sort of go with. So when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to be an English major, and stuck with it for the whole 4 years, which I know is kind of strange. But I added sociology because I took I'm a poster child for general education courses. I took a sociology class as part of my gen ed and loved it. And so ended up being a sociology major as well. And, as I said before, ended up just continuing to go to school, decided to go to grad school because in many ways that's what I was good at, and I felt like I wasn't done, that I hadn't learned enough. I didn't know enough yet, so I couldn't be done, and decided to go to graduate school. And, I'd always had these great relationships with my professors. Like I said before, I just adored them and worshiped them and loved the relationship that I was able to build with many of them in college. So when I got to graduate school, I had a teaching assistantship and started teaching, and found that on the flip side, I loved that relationship just as much from the other side and getting to work with students as an instructor. So I was stuck.
My experience coming to find what I wanted to do, I kind of always knew. I always loved children. People call me crazy, but I love them so much. And like when I was 14, 15, I started to help out with the youth at church. So I always knew I wanted to do something with them. But I also knew that I wanted to change people's lives directly. So I decided to be a nurse, where I could actually do both. And that's what I'm striving to be. So it's not very interesting, but yeah.
I've always been interested in criminal justice and law since I was younger. And after telling my mom that I wanted to be a cowgirl for a really long time, I decided, I'm really interested in criminal justice. And I think for me, the biggest reason why I've chosen my field of study for my major and my minor both is because I'm always one of those people who are like, if you don't like something or the way that it's going, like, do something to fix it. And I just knew that I didn't want to be one of those black people who are like, I hate politics and the way that the government works and the way the system is, and all I do is sit on my couch and watch politics and watch how the system works. So I figured if I educate myself on the system and then place myself in a situation where I'm able to change the outcome of it, that would probably be the best solution for me. So because I'm so strong forth in my faith and in helping my community and being strong for, especially with the black community, that's why I chose criminal justice, because I knew that if I wanted to see people like me do good, I had to be the person in the situation to prepare them and support them and give them the resources that they need to do good. So that's why I chose criminal justice. I've never considered changing my major. I've never considered switching schools. I have considered dropping out a lot. But I did it, so.
My undergrad degree here was biology, and it was a long, tortured path to get to it. I changed majors several times because I just knew I was going to college. I was naive, didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I started out pre-law. After the first semester, I switched to accounting because I had a buddy who was in accounting. He said accountants make a lot of money, and I was good at math. So I switched to accounting. I took accounting 201, I guess it was, and didn't like it at all. And then my mom went to the dentist. This is a sad, true story. Went to the dentist, and I heard what my mom had to pay for the filling. And I knew the dentist very well. And I thought, if he can make this kind of money, I'll make a bunch of money as a dentist. And so I came back and changed to biology, pre-med or pre-dental biology. Had high school and DAT, went to dental school for a year, never shadowed a dentist, never did anything, just didn't ask, didn't know. Mom, Dad didn't know. Oh, you're going to be a dentist, that's a great thing. I got up there, I didn't know that there's a craftsmanship piece to dentistry. And the one thing I knew I didn't want to do was anything related to crafts. Now, ironically, crafts reports up through me in my job. But went to dental school for a year, hated it. Just was totally miserable. Dropped out. Took a leave of absence, and I didn't drop out. Took a leave of absence, so I was on the clock, had 1 year to decide what to do, and I was just under enormous pressure on myself because it felt like I'd let mom and dad down. I had my biology degree. I was able to transfer the first year back here to finish off because I got in a year early. I was here 3 years, but my DAT score was good enough. Got in a year early. So my senior year was essentially spent at UK Dental School. Again, I was miserable. I took a job at Sherwin-Williams as a tank cleaner, the worst job you could have, hottest, nastiest job. But I liked it. I did. I liked it. I liked the people. And my dad grew up in a working factory. And so I thought, well, I'll apply for a full-time job in factory. I got a biology degree, and I got a job in Winchester at Coors. Coors had a plant there that made vitamin B2, not beer. And that was a traumatic thing for my mother when I went to work for Coors, even though they didn't make beer. And I just loved it. And so I decided I want to be a plant manager. And so I was going to get an MBA. The plant manager said, you don't need an MBA, you need a chemical engineering degree. And again, I was still 23 and naive. Okay, I'll get a chemical engineering degree. And so I did, and as I went to school then, and I was working full-time, going to school full-time to get a chemical engineering degree. But as I walked in the factory, I just would visualize how this was all coming together, and I knew what I was supposed to do. It just clicked, and I loved it. So, and that's how I wound up with a chemical engineering degree, and then later, added an MBA. But that's how I wound up doing what I was supposed to do.
Folks, we are actually 5 minutes after what was our official ending time at 6:35, so we'll kind of cut it there. I'm sure people would be willing to kind of stay around and answer questions one-on-one. And I will say I'm glad that we ended on a note of sometimes it's not always an easy pattern. You're not making an A or even a B, but that's okay. Aim for those A's, right? But sometimes you're not going to get them, that's all right too. Thank you for coming. Please grab some water, coffee, cookies on your way out. There's also a handout with resources that we've cultivated for first-generation students. If you still have some questions about where you need to go from here, if you're still a little lost and any of us be willing to answer questions as well, and we need proof of attendance, that's in the back. So thank you guys, and let's give our panel